Shakers. We're here for the Nutritional Lifestyle Challenge workshop with our good friend and colleague Eric. He's here with a handful of ladies. Guys, I don't know where you're at. Probably scared of a little bit of a challenge. It's a call out, just for y'all. But I'm going to hand it over to Eric. He'll get into the challenge details and what it all entails. So you go.
Okay, so basically, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm making it as easy as possible. Nutrition is a very broad subject. What I try to do is narrow it down to just kind of the basics. That's why I labeled it basic nutrition. Attached to this, I've come up with, throughout the past few years, I've come up with a pretty good challenge that takes people from something that's where they're completely detoxify the body, so cutting out processed foods, and then moving into something that's more sustainable, which would be kind of more of a clean eating style of gluten-free eating, okay? But we'll get into that at the very end. I'm going to talk more about just the basics of just general nutrition, okay? So with this, I want you guys to help, okay? So the more interaction I get out of this, the better it's going to be, and the more you'll learn as well. So let's talk just a little bit about what the typical like Western diet is, okay? And when I say typical Western diet, it's kind of just what the normal public deems as what a healthy diet would be. All right. So what I'm going to do is just going to list out breakfast, okay, snack, lunch. I keep going too far over here. We'll see snack, and then dinner. Okay. That is assuming that people eat that a day, okay? Most people eat 3 meals a day, but for the most part, they probably do snack and just don't realize it or don't account for it, right? So what would you guys say would be a typical breakfast? Cereal.
Oatmeal.
Okay. Cereal or oatmeal. Okay, we'll just put oats. And along with that, it's probably more likely some milk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Milk, okay. Eggs, or OJ, yeah. Okay, so if we're sticking with just cereal, for the most part, they're going to just have milk and probably a glass of OJ, maybe a cup of coffee, right?
For sure, coffee.
Bagel.
A lot goes into coffee, right? Depending on how they flavor it, there's other things that go into it, right? Okay, so we'll talk about a snack. So what's kind of a typical, like, in between breakfast and lunch snack?
Get breakfast bar or something.
Bar, and we'll just label it bar. Bars, maybe chips, okay? Depending on the person, if they like chips or whatever, I don't know. All right, so lunch.
Most people have sandwiches.
Most people have sandwiches, right? So, I mean, let's think of sandwich. Okay, we've got, probably some bread, right? A couple, two slices. Okay, bread, maybe if it's a sub, it's, whatever more. So we've got some meat on it, okay, whatever it is. We'll just say lettuce, okay, cheese. We can go on and on, right? So, and then probably along with that, some mayo, right?
And if it's Subway, some chemicals.
We'll get into those later, okay? So, assuming they're hungry after lunch, they have a little bit of snack in between dinner, if it's a full day. What do you think they're going for next on it? Maybe a piece of fruit? Maybe.
I would say fruit or nuts, like almonds, maybe.
Fruit or nuts, okay.
If I was being bad, would go for something sweet at this point.
Okay. Trail mix. What would you go for?
If I wasn't.
Okay, so
Cookies.
You were saying you were
Cookies.
All right, so
Pre-move, Malaise.
Pre-move.
Now this remember, this can fall after dinner. This doesn't necessarily have to fall.
Yeah,
here.
but a lot of people have that sugar.
Yeah, so they can have like dinner late and then have like a snack like more before bed. So this isn't necessarily a specific time frame. It's just assuming that someone has a snack. So we'll just say trail mix. Yeah, or some sort of sweet, right?
I'm gonna go cookie with Malaise.
And then, all right, what are we thinking for dinner?
Pasta. Spaghetti.
Yep, spaghetti. So pasta. Okay. We'll do some meat sauce. Okay.
Maybe a piece of garlic bread.
And some garlic bread.
The steak sounds good.
Okay.
Carb overload. Love the steak.
All right, so breaking these down real quick, just the day itself, and then what I mean by breaking it down as far as in nutrients, right? So we'll just stick with just the 3 major nutrients, which would be carbohydrate, fats, and then protein. Okay. this day here, what are we looking at with the cereal? Carbs, okay. Okay, maybe if that's a decent note, there might be some protein in there, but it just depends, okay. Milk.
Carbs.
Fat.
Okay.
Protein.
Milk is actually one of the ones
Protein.
that has all three. So it has fats, carbohydrates, and protein. Okay, so we've got them all here. We got a double here for that. Then we've got some fat, okay, and then some protein. All right, so one there. OJ, carb, okay. Okay. Whatever we have in the coffee might be whatever, okay. So you can see here, all right, just by that day alone, what overrides everything?
Carbs.
Carbohydrates. Okay, moving on. Depending on the type of bar, it might be a protein bar, whatever it is, but for majority of the times, these two items are going to be higher in carbohydrates. Okay, there will probably be some protein. Okay, but it's not going to be the predominant of the actual item. Okay. So now for lunch, sandwich. We've got bread,
Carbs.
carb. Okay. Got one for carb, probably we'll say 2 for slices of bread here. Meat, depending on how many ounces are in there, it's going to be at least some protein, right? Alright, lettuce and cheese. Cheese is a dairy, so it's going to fall kind of in that same category of all three. So there's going to be some fats, okay? And then we're going mayo again,
Fat.
that's going to be fat. And some carb, and that's actually going to have a little bit, since it's a little dairy, it's going to have a little bit of protein, okay? Not necessarily a great source for it, but it will have a little bit. Alright? Snack here, trail mix,
Carb and fat.
carb and fat, okay?
Maybe some protein from the nuts.
Yeah, depending on the most trail mixes are just higher in peanuts, which sucks, right? Because anytime you grab a decent trail mix, you think there's going to be at least some almonds in there. It's mostly going to be more peanuts than it is anything else. So I mean, there is going to be mostly fat. There will be a little bit of protein, just a little bit. Okay. Now we're doing dinner. Okay. Pasta,
Carbs.
carbs. Okay. Meat sauce,
Protein.
protein. Okay. And then the garlic bread, we've got double carbs. And for the most part, depending on how much meat sauce you're putting on there, you're more likely just got a bunch of carbohydrates. Okay. So. In a nutshell, if we're looking at a macronutrient day, what do we predominantly have here?
Carbs.
Carbs, okay. And if you're looking at it, how much of this stuff would you be finding in a box or a bag? Initially. Okay, so for the most part, processed, right? So, I'll erase this so we have a little bit more room. Okay, so to break down just that typical Western diet, okay, high in carbohydrate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Highly processed, right? For the most part, the stuff comes from a bag or a box. And if you were to say that it being processed is going to have a bunch of other stuff in it too.
Sugar.
So higher in sugar, right? So I mean that's going to kind of fall into that. So I would also say majority of the stuff, depending on how it was all cooked or whatever made, if it's processed, it's more likely going to be high in some bad fats. Okay. So with this, there remains 3 major issues, okay? The carbohydrate being, that means it's in sugar, okay? So, sugar. And then processed, okay? There's going to be something in there that would generally that's a protein that they add to foods, which is generally a thickener, okay? That they add to our wheat and stuff like that so it can be mass produced. It's called gluten, okay? And there's many different proteins that go with that, so it's not just gluten itself, okay? And then bad fats. When I say bad fats, what are you guys thinking of?
Mayo.
Not the food, but the type of fat.
What kinds of fats are there?
Polysaturated.
So, I mean, you don't have to get specific, just the number one thing that's saturated,
saturated
yeah. So we'll say like trans, right? Okay, those are in a lot of processed foods. That would also be in here, trans. Okay, then there's some saturated, not to get too far into the fats, but some saturated can be good. Okay, and then as far as other bad fats, it's going to be very high in omega 6s. Okay, omega 6s can be good. Okay, but they can also be bad in high doses. All right, so having a diet that's very high in this, okay, is going to have these three main issues. All right, and the main issues with these, okay, if you have a predominantly high diet in sugar or carbohydrate, okay, we talk about the breakfast, the lunch, the dinner, or then the snack and then the dinner, right? What happens when you have a kind of a higher amount of sugar in your diet? So say when I eat, you ever had that up, you've had some energy, and then all of a sudden you've had that drop in energy, right? So that's your blood sugar spiking, okay? So anytime you eat at all, your blood sugar spikes, okay? But the amount that it spikes is based off of how much this is in there, okay? So if a meal is high in carbohydrate and very low in some of the other ones, the spike is going to be very high, okay? And what happens in our body in order to balance out our blood sugar throughout the day so we don't have that fall is our pancreas releases insulin in order to control that, right? But if we have this constant spike throughout our day, right, then where our insulin is just going like this up and down to trying to control it, right? So in turn, doing this can cause, later on if it's over time, right, can cause what kind of things? Diabetes. So we'll just say metabolic diseases, okay? All right, so one of the main issues. Now, moving on to things that are just in processed foods, so gluten, for instance, all right? Gluten, the protein itself, because our bodies have just never really adapted to actually processing these things or breaking them down, what gluten really does in our body is it attaches to our stomach lining and makes it more permeable, okay? So that protein gets into our stomach lining and it just kind of, we'll say just basically eats away at the stomach lining, okay? So over time, all right, we end up in, little doses at a time, and depending on the amount of allergy that we have with it, okay, because everybody has a different amount, we can get something called leaky gut syndrome, okay? And with that, what's actually happening is that the things that are going on in our stomach, some of the toxins and all that other stuff is leaking into our bloodstream, which can cause lots of different problems, okay? But for the most part, that's going to cause just an inflammation, a negative inflammation in our body, okay? So, so now we've got spike in blood sugar, right? Okay, leaking gut. Now with this, not to go too far into it, but there's a lot of things that can just be caused, okay? Allergies can be caused from that, as far as like just your overall body, like getting, everyone says you stay in Austin long enough, you're going to get allergies, right? Well, probably more than likely it has to do with someone's diet as well, okay? If their diet is consisting something of like this, then they're not able to actually fight off those things, and they will eventually attract those allergies, okay? So, leaking gut leading to negative inflammation in the body. Okay, which over time, a constant negative inflammation in the body can do what? Prolong. So, over time, basically, just over time, a disease lives in an inflammatory state. Okay, so still, once again, we're leading to more diseases. Okay, so just over a constant time, and what I mean by that is just not necessarily diabetes or anything like that. It can just cause, RA, which is rheumatoid arthritis, is generally caused by a bad diet. It can be cleaned up, not necessarily cured, but it can just actually be cleaned up a little bit with a clean diet. And then, other things like this has actually been somewhat linked to children having ADHD, and then just other types of, issues like that, behavioral issues and things.
What about gout? Right? Does it lead to gout?
It's so one of those things, and when so like I said, going a little bit further in that, you can get like more immune deficiencies things, so where your body doesn't actually kind of absorb certain nutrients, and that can be what can cause to gout. So it can just cause all kinds of issues, all right? And then with bad fats, trans, saturated, the bad saturated, our bodies won't end up breaking these down. They end up building up in our system and then causing plaque, which can cause cardiovascular disease and then other metabolic problems, okay? Also, having a diet high in omega-6s, okay? Omega-6 is a pro-inflammatory, okay? That's why I said it can be good and it can be bad, okay? Pro-inflammatory is good, all right, in some instances, all right, but it's also bad when it's really high versus the anti-inflammatory would be an omega-3, okay? So if our diet is high in omega-6s and then low in omega-3s, we're constantly living in this high inflammatory state, okay, which is what we want to prevent, all right? Is there any questions on any of this? You guys feel like I've covered a good amount, okay? All right, so now.
I just feel really bad about myself now.
You didn't eat what I ate yesterday.
Not at all.
I
You
should
shouldn't.
have diabetes and gout.
Yes,
Over time,
I'm talking
over
about
time.
those are the end states. Those are the if you're continuously prolonging, like staying with that. You can stop that stuff. Like there's also ways of, and this is what the challenge is going to kind of show people, and that's why I put education, is that there's going to be ways where eventually, after time, you can start to have those every once in a while, have a good sandwich, a meatball sub, or whatever. It's if you're 80 to 90% keeping that stuff out of your body, then every once in a while you have it. There's nothing. It's not necessarily going to affect you the way if it's consistently throughout your diet. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So
I guess that was a good point
go ahead.
too about the omega-6, because I feel like, everybody jumps on the bandwagon of like, oh, get more omegas, and then you don't realize like there's a difference and
Yeah.
you need to balance it, versus.
So and I'll talk about this here in a little bit, but actually, I'm just talking about now. The way, you've heard of the caveman diet and the paleo and stuff like that, right? So the idea behind that stuff is that back in the day, right, when there was no processed foods and we were eating off the land or whatever, our diet was very balanced as far as like our fats go. We're very balanced as far as omega-6s and omega-3s, right? So we're 1 to 1. Now they say with the typical Western diet, it's 20 to 1, okay?
Because people don't eat as much fish.
They don't eat
regularly
enough
with
fish.
their
They just
omegas.
I mean, overall, if you were to just completely cut all that stuff out, you would somewhat balance it out. But there's still just so much stuff that they spray on our foods and things like that. So it just, it's just part of the natural preservation of like the food. If it travels from the farm to the actual grocery store, then that's kind of what they need to do to make sure. Even organic stuff for the most part, has some form of like something on it, and that's where the omega-6s are come from. Basically, it's preservatives and processed things. Okay. Any questions so far, guys? Okay. All right. So moving on to, it'll flow into what the challenge is. Okay. So talking about all that, the way to combat that type of stuff is to do what?
Not eat it.
Well,
Okay.
journal.
But what ends up, yeah.
Eat
But
the
what,
foods that
Purge.
but what
fuel
ends up,
you.
no, it's not that. And that's exactly the first thing that most people think, like, oh my God, what can I eat, right? So if we're going to look at, and I'm going to line this back out, okay, breakfast, snack, lunch, snack,
Sustainable.
and dinner. Okay.
Dessert.
Did I spell that wrong?
Can we have fruit snack?
No.
Oh,
That's it, okay.
gross.
All right, so let's cut out the processed stuff, and then let's make a good day.
Eggs.
World oats.
Eggs, okay.
Good.
All right, and so remember, if we're balancing a meal, okay, we want to think of the 3 main nutrients, okay. So not necessarily in the snack, but for the main meals, we want to balance. So protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Okay, so we always want to balance it out. So
How about like a avocado? Or
Can't you do
Or-
the
or
world
whatever you
oats?
cook it in.
The still grain, the oat milk.
cut.
Still
That is
cut
something
oats.
we'll get to, and that'll be more into the maintenance portion.
I was just
Okay.
kidding.
I was gonna say like, I always make an egg white broccoli omelet.
Oh, it's perfect. So right there, you
Spinach.
got, so you have so we'll just say an egg omelet, right?
But I put
Um,
broccoli in it to make me feel like I'm having
Omelet.
You are
Omelet.
so
It
gassy.
has an E on it.
You're a gassy girl in the morning.
I think it's
OMLET.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We'll just erase that.
Eggs.
Eggs, okay?
Eggs.
Eggs, broccoli, okay?
Oh, whatever.
Is that right?
No, two
CCO.
C's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just put veggies.
Yeah, green veggie.
Yeah.
There you go.
Spinach,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay, whatever.
It's a lot of pressure when you're on the board in front of
All right, so eggs, broccoli, and then if that would be our carb, right? That'd
Yeah.
be our carb. That's our protein.
Protein.
All right, and then whatever we cooked it in could be our oil.
Olive
Okay, so olive oil. All right, and that's our fat. All right, so right there we've got a pretty balanced meal. Not to mention, this is going to be more filling, okay, because this has way more fiber in it. Okay, not to mention adding that good fat in is going to help with our satiety. Okay, and then we've got a good protein, good source.
What is the deal with egg whites versus egg? Like, when can you, I mean, some yolk is
Yeah.
good, right? Like,
Yes,
the
yeah,
yolk.
totally.
Okay.
There's majority of the nutrients is in the yolk.
okay.
And
So why is there this push to always do egg whites, egg whites, egg whites?
yeah, and it is over cholesterol. And
Okay.
majority of the times, you don't have anything to worry about as far as the yolk goes, unless you have like hypercholesterolemia in the family, okay, or if your diet consists of what we just had, high sugar, okay, high of bad fats, and high processed foods. If you're constantly eating like that, and then you eat a lot of yolks, okay, then that can be bad for you. Okay, because your body naturally produces cholesterol, and the cholesterol that's in eggs is different than what your body produces. Okay,
And I always do one regular.
majority of
egg
the protein is in the
and
yolk,
then
though.
three
I mean,
egg
the white.
whites.
Yeah, it
I
makes it
always
a
do
lot
one
better.
regular egg.
Yeah,
Like 3 egg whites in the whole.
that's generally what I do. I do two normal eggs, and then I'll do like 2 to 3 egg whites. Majority of the protein is in the egg yolk or egg white. Majority of the nutrients are in the egg yolk.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So snack. We can stick with just a carb and a
Fruit.
fat. Okay. So we'll say,
An apple.
An apple.
Almond butter.
And almonds.
look at that almond butter. I love it.
We did that diet last spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done
All
this
right,
before.
so, all right, perfect, good. So we would have had a little bit of a spike in our blood sugar, okay, from the apple, but since we have paired it with fat, we've actually controlled it and leveled it out a little bit.
Which
okay?
I did not do today before class. I had an apple without it, and then I was like, whoa.
You were fine.
But what can you do besides apple and almond butter? Can you, I mean,
Oh, there's plenty of
Well,
things.
like
I mean, you can
nuts.
do,
Okay.
I don't know, carrots and
Hummus?
You can do some carrots and
Some
later on
cucumbers.
you'll be able to do some hummus or
cucumbers?
What is
What about,
it?
like,
Baba
Greek
ganoush,
yogurt?
right? Baba ganoush is made from eggplant.
Yeah.
We'll just say baba
Oh,
because
yes.
I don't speak that. So,
What about Greek yogurt?
what's that?
Greek yogurt.
Greek yogurt would be good.
Wait.
The only thing it's going to be it would spike the blood sugar. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit more higher in
Plain Greek
Carbohydrate.
yogurt?
plain Greek yogurt. Yeah. So I mean, it's not necessarily bad. It's not going to be bad, but it would be better if it was paired with something.
can you do
like this.
cucumbers at that time?
Yeah. You do
Okay.
cucumbers.
'Cause none of
Yeah,
that.
really.
Cucumbers,
You can
like
just
why
say
are
you
they
can
food?
say
Like,
veggie or
cucumbers
fruit,
and
okay,
everyone.
and then try to pair it
I
with
love
some
cucumbers.
form of a fat, okay, just to kind of balance it out. Now lunch, okay, so
With chicken or
say
tuna.
spinach, okay, and then probably gonna add some chicken to it, okay, and then
Snap.
what are we gonna put on that as far as?
Balsamic and olive oil.
Oh, look at that,
Can you do red wine vinegar? Is that bad?
balsamic and oil.
Probably better
How
because
about-
sugar than balsamic.
Turkey and sweet potatoes.
Yeah,
That's
sweet
what I-
potatoes, zucchini, and chicken.
We can do that for dinner or whatever,
And
okay,
some grape
that's gonna come later, okay, like I said,
Okay.
we'll feed a little bit into the challenge. I am taking out some, as far as the part, the strict portion, that part won't have potatoes in the beginning, okay?
Dang.
Mhm.
No sweet wheat.
Guys, and I'll explain more in the challenge why.
Whiners,
Okay.
stop.
I'll explain more in the challenge why, all right? So, snack, we'll just stick with veggie or fruit.
I think
Okay.
it's all
We
girls.
can even, I mean, here,
Can you do
like,
almonds?
yeah,
Okay, would that be your fat?
veggie, fruit, I mean, or you can do
Sick.
something like, you know, I don't know.
Don't you not want to eat that much fruit?
Yes,
in
so,
that
and that's
meal?
gonna be in the challenge as well. There's
that's
certain
gonna be
amount
in
of,
the
yeah,
challenge.
certain amount of, like, how many fruit for women and how many fruit for men.
Sugars in the
They're
morning.
But remember, this is, there's gonna be portion sizes in there as well, okay? That's something we'll talk about too. So for instance, a medium apple is actually 3 servings of fruit.
Ooh.
A normal size banana, which would be usually like a 9-inch banana, is 3 servings.
I have some larger bananas.
Hey, you guys, maybe I should have said banana, but just stick with keep it down,
Wow,
okay?
weird.
Veggie, fruit, and a fat, okay? Dinner, what are we talking about for dinner?
The same thing as
Salmon.
meat,
Okay, so-
veggie, and potato.
We could do a turkey,
Like
okay,
snack kitchen.
turkey, you guys get the point, right?
Yes.
So we're pairing good stuff, and then what we're doing is replacing the processed stuff with actual whole foods, which would be vegetables or whatever, okay? Something that can actually be cooked,
Does
not
it matter
taken
what
over.
kind of protein, like, so when you go and buy a protein, does it have to be free range organic?
Yes, so, so along with cutting out processed stuff, we also want to cut out things that are farm raised, okay? Because when they're farm raised, they add antibiotics to them, they beef up the cows and things, and all that is basically adding the same stuff that is in a processed food, okay? Because when they're feeding, they feed a chicken grain or whatever they feed that chicken, okay? Once that chicken is processed and we eat it, we are eating what they fed that chicken. Same with beef, cattle, or any fish or anything that we have, okay? So the cleaner the fish, the better our body, or the better it is for us, okay? Wild caught fish, free range chicken, I think it's, and then pasteurized eggs or something, non-pasteurized, they just renamed it or something. Yeah, they just renamed it to where it's not necessarily cage free anymore. I think it's like,
Because cage-free means, just because they're cage-free, it means they just aren't in a cage, they can still feed
for a
them.
certain amount of time. That's one of the reasons why they changed it. Yeah. So, and it's the same thing with certain like non-process or non-antibiotics too. It's like the cows were like when they're doing now with grass-fed cows, that they were not grass-fed or they were grass-fed for majority of their life, and then the last part of it they beefed them up and then
For the auction.
yeah, exactly. So
I heard that ground turkey, I don't know if this is true, this is from my parents, they grind up everything, like the skin and stuff is in it too. Is that true?
possibility. I mean, that's
think-
something I've never really heard that, but it's not necessarily
Yeah, we don't know.
far from it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's why when you buy ground turkey, there's different types.
There's different
like
types.
you can get the 98% like
Well,
whole
yeah.
white meat
Yeah. I
can look
versus
into
the
that, though.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that, because I always do ground turkey as one
So
of
do
mine.
And that
I need to
grosses
look
me
into
out.
that now. I will look
Yeah.
into that. But we get the idea behind this, right? Okay,
Uh-huh.
so the benefits of this, eating like this, are basically everything is the opposite of the negatives of the other, right? So this will reduce allergies, okay? Inflammation, which in turn just helps with pretty much everything, okay? And reducing inflammation in our body is going to help us operate better. Our recovery time is going to be better from workouts.
Reduces your
We'll
body's
sleep better. Okay? We'll sleep better.
Makes you skinny.
It actually improves our skin, our hair, things like our fingernails grow correctly. I mean, all the stuff, when you take out all the bad things, helps, and our bodies are just operating the way they're supposed to.
And just sustainable energy throughout your
Exactly.
day. Like
Energy.
when I was
Better
doing
energy.
this super clean, I felt awesome. Now I
weren't you
feel
bleeding?
like crap.
Better energy. You'll feel lighter, okay? There's tons and tons of things, of benefits that you'll get from just taking out those certain foods, okay? All right, cool. Any questions on this, guys?
I guess you may talk about this later, but my problem is just running out of things to like make myself. or like
yeah, to
getting
make
tired.
it different and
Make
not
it different
the
and
same
not-
thing
Well,
over
you
and
gotta
over.
think like how they kind of did it back in the day, where the seasons changed and they only had what they had in those seasons. So I mean, if you kind of compare it to that, it makes it a little bit more kind of easier to deal with because we still have a lot of options compared to that. And you know, just
So, like-
figuratively thinking about it that way.
Well, I
Ways
think
to like prepare the chicken so it doesn't just taste
the same every time, yeah.
Yep.
And
And,
I've come
and
into
preparation's
some-
really key.
Yeah.
Like seasoning it correctly,
Yeah.
using different oils. I mean, there's tons of really good oils out there
Spices.
that so many people don't use because they don't really know about them, that,
Yeah.
that they're actually good.
Right.
You know, the list that comes out with the challenge gives you all the good stuff that you're gonna win. And what I always tell people is buy everything on the list because then you're not limited. You know, because then I mean, don't do it all at once, maybe, because then it might go bad because you won't eat it in a week. But you know, don't limit yourself to that. And then, especially when it comes to like the veggies, don't limit yourself there. Go into an Asian store and you know find some random thing and you know look it up and see what the benefits are. You know, I mean, there's tons of different. There's so much stuff out there that we don't know about that may not even be on that list. You know.
So what about like, cause I mean I guess I get bored if I'm eating like just the same, like just cooked carrots and just this and just this. I like to like combine a lot of stuff for flavor and add spice. So like I might do like a roasted veggie combo thing, you know, that has like tons of different stuff but has good flavor. So how do you like break that down and count that towards like, okay, am I eating like all these, does this count as one serving, is this two, how, you know what I mean, like?
That's gonna, a lot of that's
Scale.
gonna be based off, well, I mean, what I don't want you guys doing is focusing on that, okay? Because all of you guys are active, okay? You know your bodies, all right? Pay attention. And the cleaner you eat, generally, you're not taking in as many calories, okay? If we were to break that calorie down of the typical Western diet and then what we were actually ate when we had the cleaner diet, okay? The calories are gonna be less here on the cleaner diet because majority of our calories are coming from the processed foods and stuff, and the breads and all that, versus the cleaner stuff. The meat and all the proteins, those are lower in calorie than a piece of bread, you know, depending on how much bread, but and how much protein. But and fat, not to mention fat, the good fats are going to keep us fuller longer. Okay, eating more vegetables that are higher in fiber. Okay, those are going to keep us fuller longer. So as far as portion sizes go, for the most part, just I mean I put serving sizes on the list and talking about like what's a good serving size and whatever. But for the most part, pay attention to your body, your energy level. Okay, if you're hungry, eat. Okay, don't eat like a gourmet, you know, a whole buffet, but eat. You know, that's absolutely normal because it's your body's response telling you that hey, I need more food. You know, it's normal, and especially when your body really starts to operate normal. You'll understand what's happening. Okay, well today I felt like crap. Well, it's probably because if I look back at my logs, I didn't eat enough. Versus a day before that when I felt great, I did well in my workout. I recovered the next day, really good. And you'll notice that. And then the logs will show that too, because I have everything on there as far as sleep, how'd you feel today, what was your workout like, you know. So it's pretty elaborate when it comes down to it, because it really makes a big difference when it comes to eating and how you feel. Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk about the challenge, guys, and then within the challenge, I'm going to talk about some other things that you can add in as far as like supplements and things like that. Healthy living supplements. I'm not a big, even though I consider myself kind of performance-based, I still pretty much, and same with Jared, we still pretty much just our normal like supplements that we take are just healthy living type stuff. Okay. And then we'll open it up for questions, okay? So for the challenge, guys, it's 8 total weeks. The first 3 weeks are strict, okay? And what I mean by strict, you could deem it paleo, but I don't like using terms like that just because, you know, they just get kind of a bad, not necessarily a bad rap, but I just don't like throwing those words around because I don't like people thinking of a diet, okay? Diet is actually, the definition of a diet is what you eat, okay? But strict mean cutting out all processed foods, right? And all high carbohydrate items, all right? And mostly because I want you guys to see how your body actually operates on fats, okay? Which is a little bit cleaner, and it's also going to give you guys more sustainable energy, all right? Like I said, within that, there's a detox, okay? That's detoxifying the body of all the chemicals and things that you've taken in from the processed foods, okay? With that being said, there is a lag period, okay? And the lag period is your body changing energy systems. So taking energy systems, meaning your body's most likely operating on carbohydrates. The lag period is transferring from carbohydrates to fats, okay? So it's normal to have a couple days of just kind of low drag, not really feeling much energy, not really doing it. Doesn't mean your body's not recovering good. Just means that it's not operating at its tip-top shape. Okay, cutting out processed foods. Coming into week 4 of that, I'm going to start to introduce you guys with a little bit of some more like carbohydrate items. Sweet potato being one of them of that first 4 week. Okay. The reason I wanted to do it like this, first off, a lot of people have gotten more results off the 8 weeks versus just doing like a 30-day challenge, because more accountability with it, not to mention they learn more, okay, on how to actually sustain something versus going from one extreme to the next, okay. So the idea is throughout the 5-week progression, okay, you're going to start to slowly add certain things back in, all right. And what's also you're going to find is that certain things don't react to your body the way they used to, okay? When you're constantly flooding your body with something like this, you just get kind of used to that feeling, okay? You don't really know what's happening anymore, okay? Once you cut it all out and then start to add it back in, okay, you'll start to see that some of the things may not agree with you. One being milk, okay? You may not realize that you have somewhat of a lactose intolerance, okay? But majority of the stuff that you're going to be adding in aren't going to necessarily give you a allergen effect, okay? That's going to be more sustainable type stuff, deemed more of a clean eating, okay? To where you're able to have a little bit more carbohydrate, but not necessarily to the extent of where we were here, okay? And I'll talk about that as far as once we get into that stage. Like I said, with sustainability, being able to identify things and be more educated on what to eat, okay, even when you go out, reading labels, and then just kind of just how you feel overall, okay. Within the whole challenge, I constantly feed articles about, especially during the first 3 weeks, I send out a couple, like 3 or 4 articles just about what you're probably going through, the benefits of certain things, and if someone comes up with a certain specific question. Matter of fact, I had someone ask me about the eggs before, and I found a really good article on it, and I sent it to them, and it just explained basically what I did a little bit more in detail. So things like that, just if I find really good articles that as I'm doing my own research, because like I said, nutrition's so broad that I'm continuously reading things. And if I find something, I always try to go non-bias on stuff. So I try to find the good, the bad, and then, something that's in between there, and then kind of make up your own decision. And I'll always ask, I'm like, what's your comments? What do you think? What's your thoughts on this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? It's an open dialogue when it comes to this stuff, okay? Accountability, you will be set up with a food log, and it's through Google Docs, so it's pretty easy to edit. You just go in there, and like I said, it'll have, whoever decides to do it, they'll have their names on the tabs and below, and then you go in, you put the time of day that you're eating, and it's really self-explanatory. It's what you eat, the amount of sleep you got, how you're feeling, your workout for the day, and then comments, recipes, and stuff like that. And what's cool about it is that who's ever doing the challenge, you can see everybody else's stuff. So if you post a recipe, someone can see that. Okay, and there's also a little thing at the top that you can click on that says comment, and then it'll show on your tab that you commented. Then they can go up to the tab, look at it, and if you want to put a recipe in there, then that's a good place to put it. Okay, and that's the thing. You guys really, and whoever they're doing this, you Google everything, and then if it's not on the ingredients list, then you can't have it. But you can find tons and tons and tons of sources out there of just really great recipes. Not to mention I have a crap load of them. So you'll be set for a while if you just stick with the ones that I send out. Specifically, crock pot ones. Sorry, crock pot
Sweet.
recipes are really awesome, and if you
Yeah, there's more like caveman moves.
those can stick with you a lot longer. Sorry, I don't really know how to operate my phone, so I'm just trying to turn it off. All right, and then one-on-one sessions. So at the beginning of it, I'll do just a one-on-one counseling with you, kind of talking about some of the goals that you have going into it, and then like any basically food allergies and stuff like that. And then we'll also do a body composition. Okay, but what I mean by body composition does not mean that I'm getting your body fat. Can I get your body fat from that? Yes, but more specifically, your body carries. Because of our hormones and just the environment and things like that, you will carry fat in certain areas, right? And it based off stress, sleep, there's all kinds of things that fall into where you and why you carry your fat there, okay? With the skin folds, I can figure out why, and we can address those, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just specific to diet, because a lot of it's lifestyle, okay? So this feeds into more of a lifestyle type thing too. It doesn't always feed into how you're eating.
So you can like see the skin folds on my gut and be like,
when I say fold,
this is what.
I'm
Well,
not
no, I
saying
mean I have
that's
like some folds there, so I would love for you to be like, this is why you have folds right here, and
yes, I can be
2
more
years
specific.
at Move haven't gotten rid of your folds.
It's pretty specific.
Well, and genetics too play a big part.
Whatever.
It
So
does.
specifically, if
The pooch.
there's 4 main sites that are on the torso. Okay, one being the subscap, which is back here. Okay,
Back
the mid-axilla, which is right here in the rib cage area. The iliac, okay, which is kind of here on the side, and then the umbilical. Okay,
Oh,
all of these all are directly related with stress being the number one thing. Okay, but clean eating, cutting out processed foods and things that are high in carbohydrate, are going to eliminate those initially. Not to mention, will end up helping with stress. Okay, which will in turn make you sleep better, which also helps reduce stress, helps you recover better, and then with that, there's certain like workouts and stuff like that that you can add in that'll help with that too. Okay.
I just don't want to get down to 105 like Rachel in The Biggest Loser. You get all this like pushback and stuff. I'll try to stay healthy.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And then there's going to be another
It's gonna be
one-on-one at the end, and that's just to reevaluate and then where you go from there. Okay. And if there's further stuff that we need to work with, then we'll go from there on the last one-on-one. I do like to do a second workshop right around week 5, and that's just to kind of get you guys for all of us to get together again, and then kind of hear your thoughts on how you've been, and then if there's any other questions going forward, because the information that I'll be sending out will just have detailed of what I want you to do, but if you have specific questions, that'd be time to do that. But
So during the 3-week strict, like for someone like me who can't cook, SNAP is not on the 3-week strict, is it?
so there is a category for emergency
Okay.
places to go, and SNAP is on there.
Yes. Okay.
It's emergency
Will you list out certain meals that are better
places.
than
Yeah.
others?
So there's
But at SNAP, which meals we should be eating in mine?
yeah, I can list out specific ones.
Is the crispy salmon on there?
Is it on there? I need to look at it. I haven't looked at the SNAP
Hallelujah.
recipe
What
in a
are,
while.
for example,
So good.
so her birthday's February 17th
Seventeenth.
and mine's the 16th. We're just screwed on our birthdays this year, pretty much.
So,
I mean, I
It's just
travel.
one
My
year.
question is about travel.
Just 1 year.
so I have some really good
It's a big
stuff
one.
for you for travel. Okay.
I can handle it.
Travel is an issue, but the biggest thing, guys, to take away from this is I promise you that you guys will learn the plan way better than you ever have before. Okay, that was the one thing that I've gotten through changing my diet, because now Jared, I carry a cooler with me everywhere I go. Right, doesn't matter what I'm doing. I could be going just to a friend's house. I want to make sure that I've got some form of snack that if I don't feel like satisfied at whatever I was doing, I know that I have something in there that I want.
Well, he also gets very grumpy.
I was like, and your friends don't think
He
you're
doesn't
weird that you
have
come in
his
with your cooler to
They
the
know
party?
it. And I'm
I'm
also,
just kidding.
it's funny because I'm also in the military too, and my soldiers always see me walking in with my cooler. And it's
Yeah.
not a cool cooler. It's an igloo cooler. I've
Yeah.
had it for like 6 or 7 years. There's no purpose, no reason for me to get a different one. But
I think you get humpy, or you get hangry.
Oh.
You're hungry and angry.
Yeah,
Hungry and
hangry.
grumpy. That's
Yeah.
So, but I'm not gonna carry a cooler when I
No,
travel.
okay, so
You should.
what I was getting at was planning, okay? So, for instance, you can take, depending on how long your trip is, you can pack, the TSA doesn't have any issues with you packing Tupperware bowls with food, okay? Depending on obviously how long your trip is, you don't want to carry too much because then it can go bad,
I have 2 planned trips during this time.
okay?
That I
Not
know
to
of.
mention there are recipes for you to make different types of bars that will sustain at least through the travel as far as through going through the airport to where you stay away from kind of crappy food. And then once you get to your destination, the goal is to, if you have a hotel that has like a small kitchen, or if you can arrange to make sure that they have a small kitchen, then to go to a good place like a supermarket or whatever and stock your fridge. And then as far as like going out, if you're supposed to entertain like some of your clients, then planning ahead, if you're allowed to pick where you're going, research that place, see what's on the menu, and see what's approved. Okay, and majority of the times you can't go wrong in most places with just getting a piece of chicken, some veggies, and then later on rice or anything like that. So most places are going to have that on their menu. Salad, chicken, whatever, okay? And if you feel like that's not going to satisfy you while you're there, always eat ahead, okay? If you're having parties or something like that, I have tips for all that stuff where you're going to go to a party, eat before you go, eat a big meal, that way you're not hungry when you're there, okay? That way you're not tempted to snack at some of the bad ones, or bring a snack that you find online that is part of the challenge. Guaranteed 99% of the time, the people that are there that don't eat like that won't even realize that it is. I've brought cookies that have not one lick of sugar in them or flour, and people don't even believe me that they're not made from that stuff. And they're all the base of the actual cookie is just dates, walnuts, and pecans. That's it.
I want that recipe.
Yeah, and there's no flour in it whatsoever, and they're like, you're lying. You're lying. So.
Okay, speaking of cookies, so when we get to the 5-week maintenance, like, can you have that kind of a cookie in there? Like, because I'm gonna go bonkers if I don't eat at least one cookie.
There is a muffin that I approve of. Okay, it's basically a protein kind of pumpkin muffin. Okay, so that helps with especially if you're kind of craving that texture. Okay. Those things are okay, but I just don't want to see them like all over the log.
It's like
The biggest thing is limiting those things that are kind of satisfying that fix.
Yeah.
Okay, and then finding other things too that can appease for that.
Right.
Spoon of
Can I pay someone to make my
Yeah.
muffins?
So can we go back to their question about birthdays?
Yes. Okay. So
Not cookies.
birthdays
in in the 3-week period, if there is a time that you need
Like, can you have a cheat?
Okay, so
One
the
little
goal is to
cake.
not. Right? The goal is to not. All right. So I don't already want to give you an out.
Right.
All right. Understand that. What does it take to break a habit? How many days? No, it's actually 21. That's one reason why there's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's 30 days to create. Now that's what they say, right? Okay. And I don't know who they is. I just found it online. Just kidding. But
that is true. That's what they say.
So the idea is to break the habit of sugar or anything like whatever that's your kind of fix, right? If so happens, don't overindulge. Okay, these are my rules with it. Don't overindulge and add 2 days to the 3 weeks. Okay.
for each cheat meal.
Yeah, like,
I'm
don't
gonna be
binge.
like 5 weeks in. I'm just kidding.
When is this supposed to
You
start?
gotta remember, there's never a good time.
Next
No, I
Sunday,
know.
right?
Yeah, and you're right.
Yeah.
He's right. There's
Yeah.
never a good time. There's always something going on.
Life happens.
Something going on. Remember, when it comes to entertaining things and going out and stuff, have a buddy. like someone that's doing the challenge, like have a support group there, like reach out, you know, like that's the biggest thing that you know you can have in situations like this.
You're doing it for you.
Yeah,
That's the biggest.
yeah, exactly. And you know, if you're out at a bar or whatever, no one's gonna know that you're drinking soda and lime. Well, I'm just saying. I mean, if that's what you're needing to have, like that sensation of having something in your hand, or I mean, Topo Chico, they make a lime flavor that's awesome. But you know, there's always something that you can do, and you're allowed to have sparkling water on this. And LaCroix makes a ton of sparkling water flavors.